Right, members, we have attained the quorum. 2 minutes short of the deadline for the quorum. I now call the meeting to order. Item 1, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes have been made available to members. Secretariat has not received any proposed amendments. Shall I take the minutes as confirmed? All right, the minutes are so confirmed. Item number 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. There are 3 papers. CB2 152/14 to 15/01. There's a joint letter from Honorable Chen Yuen-han and Honorable TANG Ka-piu dated October the 17th. I bet that members have read that. The second paper, CB2 153/14 to 15/01. Referral from the Environmental Affairs Panel on issues relating to the protection of the occupational health of outdoor workers on days with poor air quality. The third paper, CB2 234/14 to 15/01. That's a letter dated November the 3rd from Honorable TANG Ka-piu. I gather that members have received all these documents. According to the letter from Ms. Chen and Mr. Tang, they are about the continuous contract of employment and the review thereof. As a matter of fact, this has been incorporated into the list of outstanding items for discussion in Agenda Item 1. The administration indicated that after consulting the Labour Advisory Board, they will bring us up to date on the situation. And Mr. TANG Ka-piu's letter basically requested that the research division of the council conduct some research regarding the offsetting arrangement for severance payment and long service payment against the contribution under the retirement protection scheme. And the research division will be conducting the research and coming up with the findings for members' reference.
Third item, date of next meeting and items for discussion. Perhaps we should invite the administration in at this moment.
定一定咁就喺呢個10月21號咧就
On the 21st of October, I myself, together with Vice Chairman, met with the Secretary for Labour and Welfare and discussed the work plan for the upcoming session. We had reached consensus, and the next meeting is scheduled for the 16th of December 2014, Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Any questions? No? So, yes, Mr. Tommy Chung. I want to speak on the list of items for discussion at the next meeting. Okay, so you are about to speak on the next item, right? That's setting up of the Tung Chung Job Center, item 18 of the list, and also implementation of the minimum wage ordinance in relation to the outcome of the review of the arrangement for people or persons with disabilities. Item 5. Those are the 2 items proposed by the administration. Any comment on these 2 items for discussion next time? If not, then we'll move on to the first item of discussion for today. That's item 4, Hong Kong's occupational safety performance in the first half of 2014. The administration has submitted a paper, CB bracket 2261/1415 bracket 03, and the electrical secretariat has also prepared the background brief. CB bracket 226261/1415 bracket 04. The papers have been tabled, and may I first invite the administration to walk us through the administration's paper. Thank you, Chairman. Allow me a few minutes to present the paper, and I'd like to brief members on the updated figures. In the first half of 2014, there were altogether 15 fatalities resulting from industrial accidents, an increase of or 2 times the 5 cases happened in 2013. There were 10 cases in relation to construction site accidents in the first quarter, which was unusually high comparing to the same period in recent years. And this is also a concern of the Labour Department. According to our analysis, these accidents involved a number of operations such as work in height, electrocution, and lifting operations. And in relation to these operations, we have launched special enforcement operation. And in fact, in the past 2 years, we have stepped up our inspections and enforcement efforts on construction sites. In the first 3 quarters of this year, we have issued 360 suspension notices. This figure has surpassed the figure for the whole year last year. We only issued 344 notices last year. We also initiated over 500 prosecutions. In future, the Labour Department will continue to launch enforcement action against unsafe practices. And in February this year, the Labour Department also organized a safety conference with the decoration or renovation industry to look into the hazards for workers working at height. Having taken on board views of the participants, we have come up with a new set of guidelines which clarifies the responsibilities of the main contractor and subcontractors on the installation of bamboo scaffolding and working platforms to ensure safety of workers working on these platforms. In May this year, the CIC announced the new guidelines, and in June this year, the Labour Department accordingly updated the Code of Practice for Bamboo Scaffolding Safety, which has a legislative effect. In future, in carrying out inspection on operations on bamboo scaffolds, the Labour Department will also note the Code of Practice operation. On lifting operations, concerning the number of accidents, of fatal accidents in relation to lift operations in the first quarter of this year, we launched a series of enforcement operations. Apart from that, in April this year, we also had a safety seminar. At the seminar, we appealed to the sector to enhance the safety measures. We also, following the safety seminar, followed up on the issue by holding a number of working meetings with the lifting operations industry and the construction industry. We urge the persons in charge to enhance safety measures. In particular, in relation to the responsibilities of general contractors and subcontractors on lifting operations, we clarify the responsibilities. We also urge them to devise plans for repair and maintenance of lifting machinery. Apart from that, the Labour Department also carries out regular enforcement operations and jointly with the EMSD, and we have issued so far over 100 suspension notices and improvement notices. And we've also prosecuted over 30 cases. In June this year, we held safety seminars on safe electricity operations. We reminded the sector, in particular, the hazards in relation to electrocution. In para 17 and 18 of the paper, we also set out the merit and demerit system of the Labour Department. I'll be very brief here. And Chairman, apart from the series of initiatives I mentioned, I'd like to update some figures. As of now, starting from the beginning of this year, there were 20 fatalities in construction accidents, higher than that in the same period last year, which was 16. So in the coming days, the Labour Department will continue to step up its effort to undermine the unsafe operations. We're also concerned about the catering industry because there are comparatively more industrial accidents in this sector. But we also see a very obvious declining trend. The other sector is the container handling industry, and we have set out in detail the situation in para 22 to 27 of the paper. So I shall not take up your time any further, Chairman. So much for my presentation. I'll be happy to take questions from members. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner of the Labour Department, Mr. Leung. Now, on industrial accidents, it seems that the trend is on the rise. So let's see if we have any questions from members. Mr. Tommy Cheung. Chairman, now having heard the figures, I wonder if it is because of a shortage of manpower in the industry and whether we should import labor. If workers have to work all the time, then what should be done about it? We have manpower shortage at construction sites. I don't know why, but these figures are not desirable at all. Now, about industrial accidents in the food and beverage services sector, I remember not long ago I began to be involved in occupational health and safety, and I attended events. I was the adjudicating judge, and I also presented prizes. I recall that back then there were as many as 16,000 accidents. Now, well, the figure has dropped to some 6,000, and in the first half of this year, just 2,000 or so, and also, well, 2,600 compared to 2,800. It shows that the figure is dropping. So my question is this: in fact, for the labor insurance, it's the price has dropped, and now the administration says that there is an award scheme for the construction for the industry. I wonder if awards should be given because workers in the sector work for over 10 hours a day. I think if my memory serves me right, the figure has dropped from some 16,000 in a decade ago to some 2,600. So, as employers, this is what we feel. About the award scheme, I don't know what kind of award it is. It is best if money is given, and employers are most concerned about labor insurance. So perhaps you should consider doing something about labor insurance, and to follow up on the increase in labor insurance despite the declining number of industrial accidents. Well, perhaps you'd say that the rise in labor insurance has to do with minimum wage rates, etc. But sometimes, well, you can discuss this issue as well, as you talk about occupational safety, because these two matters are linked, Chairman. Well, before the administration answers your question, I have to say that each member will have 5 minutes to speak, questions and answers included. Yes, Mr. Tommy Cheung remembers very correctly. As I said in the beginning, in terms of industrial accidents, the trend is quite obviously on the decline. As for the award, as mentioned in para 23 of the paper, together with the Occupational Safety and Health Council, we launched the Catering Industry Safety Award Scheme last year. It was launched last year. That is exactly because of this downward trend. We'd like to further improve occupational safety in the catering industry. So the existing safety award scheme covers, for example, occupational safety training. But we also understand that it is difficult to ask workers in the catering industry to attend classes in Qingyi, where the center is. That is why the OSHC will deploy tutors to the relevant catering groups to provide training. We also have an accreditation scheme concerning housekeeping in workplaces. After taking part in the accreditation scheme, the relevant organizations will be given certificates, and subsidies can also be given to purchase slip-resistant shoes and cut-resistant gloves.
As of October this year, 800 or so restaurants have taken part. If I may, Chairman. Mr. Tommy Cheung referred to the insurance. I understand that under the OSHC, headed up by Mr. Chen, there is a task force that is tasked to look at the declining trend and also the achievements of some of the initiatives. And they will look at the possibility of some discussions with the insurance sector. I understand that they are moving in this direction. Well, I know that the sector is very concerned about this, in particular the labor insurance and not just the catering trade. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, paragraph 3, I think that the paper was put together quite a long time ago. There are 8 cases that are pending autopsy reports. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for the autopsy. I defer to Mr. Wu. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much for the question. For investigation of accidents, if the causes are sufficiently clear, we don't have to wait until the autopsy report, but there are certain cases that we do have doubts, and therefore we have to wait for the autopsy reports. Investigation is going on, but until the autopsy reports are available, we are not certain. We cannot come to any conclusion. Now, for these cases, they are the individual cases. Yes, indeed, they are individual cases. Are you awaiting autopsy, or you're waiting for the autopsy reports? Autopsy has been performed. The reports have not been completed. Is that right? How long is it going to take for the reports to be available? We tried to get the report in writing. We're still awaiting the reports. In your experience, for autopsy reports, how long is it going to take? Let's say from the death certificate to the autopsy report. So this death certificate cannot be issued unless there is an autopsy report. Is that right? Perhaps we can supplement the information after the meeting. Right. I am also interested. So if someone died in the course of work, maybe you cannot be certain about the causes, like a heart attack or whatever, and you have to find out about the causes. Chairman, for these 8 cases of pending autopsy reports, we are dealing with the occupational injuries that are not industrial accidents. They just died in the course of duty. I'm not saying that they are industrial accidents per se. Well, Chairman, if I may, for industrial accidents involving heavy machinery, for example, the causes would be readily ascertained by the time we turn up at the site. We would be in a position to identify the causes. Now, for Para 3, these occupational injuries, for these fatalities cases, they may happen in an office. For someone who dies in an office, there may not be any apparent injuries, there may not be any signs commensurate with a blow or something. Well, this is a report from the first half of this year, and this is the end of November. Now, let's say 30th of June, and now we talk about 4.5 months, and the autopsy reports are still unavailable. My question then is, why so long has or have the death certificates been issued? Maybe they are already buried. I fully appreciate Mr. Sin's concerns. As I said, we don't have the information in hand. We can supplement the information after the meeting. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Chairman, thank you. Now, with regard to this report, I am a little bit concerned about it. When you compare the statistics, there has been a 200% increase in terms of industrial accidents, and for the construction trade, 300%. The Labor Department told us a moment ago the reasons. If I may pursue this matter, in particular in relation to the construction trade, there has been an upsurge in the number. Some said that some of the projects are pretty urgent, and the workers can be working till the small hours in the morning. And for the construction workers, they are prepared to work hard when times are booming. Now, as a matter of fact, there will be more projects going on going forward, and accidents are liable to happen. You mentioned some of the measures. You have inspections and prosecution. What are the penalties meted out like for these cases? Container handling, unfortunately, we've seen some fatalities. You mentioned the bliss inspection. Some workers told me that the inspections would normally take place during the day, but not so much at night, and you're not in a position to get to grips with the real situation. So would you turn up for inspection at night? Bearing in mind that the container trade is in operation 24 hours a day. I'm a member of the OSHC. There was a survey on the accidents in F&B industry. Now, some of the injuries are sustained from a fall on the same level and in the workplace. If the workers or if the employers have done a good enough job, all these accidents could have been prevented. I know that FEHD would be making their rounds. What is the situation like in this regard? Commissioner, thanks very much to Mr. Poon for the question. Now, the fatalities in the construction trade, I mentioned the causes. The Labour Department has conducted some analysis. Most of them have to do with working at height, lifting, and electrocution. For the first quarter of this year, members probably recall that by the beginning of this year, for some reasons, there were accidents caused involving the crane vehicles. Now we are taking focused and targeted action. We've been having a number of meetings with the trade, and we have had strong words with the operators of the crane lorries. We also had strong words with the principal contractors. We make sure that they are doing the gatekeeping role. Now, all these crane lorries have to be in the construction sites. We hammer home the importance of following the guidelines regarding lifting. When vehicles are allowed in for lifting operation, they have to check whether the vehicles are measure up to the safety requirements. On site, there has to be someone designated to monitor the entire lifting operation. In the first quarter of this year, there were accidents that occurred, and during our enforcement action, now these crane lorries will need to have two legs extending out to make sure that they are stable enough. Sometimes they're not properly anchored, and the lorries are not sufficiently stable, and they have to measure the capacity, the support capacity that the lorry would have. And if the vehicles are not properly anchored, they will have to take this into account. My apologies for being too verbose. Let me turn now to the F&B trade, Mr. Poon. As I said in answer to Mr. Tommy Cheung, the OSH performance in F&B industry has been improving, and the Labour Department strategy is that we rely very much on award and publicity. I mentioned the award scheme. We spend more resources in terms of inspection on the construction trade. Now, for the container handling industry, we're not restricted to the working hours in terms of inspection. All right, are you done with it, Mr. Chen Kin-bo? Chairman, thank you. If I may respond to Mr. Tommy Cheung first. Now, the accidents rate is decreasing in the F&B industry, and the premium is likely to go down. Normally, for the restaurants, it's come down from 3% to 2.2 or 2.5%. So there has been a 30% cut in terms of the premium, and nobody would be denied any insurance policy unless they are doing particularly badly. So if there is profitability, people will be competing for this kind of business. The insurance companies would look at the results when they are offering the insurance policy. If I may ask a question, there have been 15 industrial accidents in 2014, first half. Since 2011, we're looking at about 30 per annum. For 3 years now, for the first half, it was a little bit on the low side, but now we're talking about 30. I hope that in the second half there would be less than this number. Now, what I'd like to find out is this. Now, we're not talking about 1 or 2 years. This has been going on for a number of years on end. Will you conduct an analysis of the causes of these accidents over the years? And will there be any follow-up measures or initiatives that will be undertaken to address all these problems? My second question is in the first half of this year, 12 for the construction industry, the 4 involving falling from height. No, falling from height, we're talking about a number of meters and not very high in some cases. Now, fall from height, can you tell us what they are? A lot of them happened in the renovation industry, not necessarily in the building industry. I don't think it makes any difference if you put up any signs there to tell them to be safety. Can there be any pictorial aid for them to pay particular attention? Now you have you can play some video clips to alert them to the accidents that are prone to happen, to alert them to the situation. Thanks very much, Mr. Chen, for the question. I think Mr. Chen's second question is an answer to his first question. Mr. Chen asked me what are the major problems over the years. Now, Mr. Chen already said that the major problem lies with work at height, and this has been the problem that is besetting the construction industry. When we attend the international conferences, we get to know that this is not a situation unique to Hong Kong, and this is an area where workers are most likely to get hurt.
Well, in fact, every year about 60% of the industrial fatalities had to do with work at height. That means if we could control the hazards arising from work at height, we are going to have a better OSH report card. And in relation to work at height, over the past few years, we have been doing a lot. Of course, we will continue with publicity work, but we also worried that publicity and promotion efforts may not be sustainable. And in fact, in 2012, the Labour Department, together with the OSH Council and the insurance industry, launched a safety accreditation scheme for the renovation industry. And under the scheme, if the subcontractor gets our accreditation, they can get a 50% discount as they take out labor insurance. So annually, they can save up to 50% or $50,000 on labor insurance per worker, which means, say, $300,000 for 6 workers. And this is a very good incentive for them to improve the occupational safety of scaffolding workers. And we also launched in 2013 a subsidy scheme for the purchase of mobile working platforms. And the applicants could get up to $4,000 subsidy. Now, about fall of person from height, fatalities or severe injuries may result even if the person only falls from a height of less than 2 or 3 meters. So this year we are discussing with the general contractors, can we ban the use of step ladders or A-shaped ladders at construction sites and have them replaced by mobile working platforms. And we have received quite good response from the industry. But their concern is that the working platforms are too bulky, and they ask if more flexible, smaller platforms can be provided. And we have taken on board their views, and we are looking into the feasibility of providing smaller working platforms. And then we can expand the scope of the subsidy to gradually change the habit of using unsafe ladders. And as said just now, we also work with the Construction Industry Council. We issued a set of guidelines on planking arrangement for providing working platforms on bamboo scaffolds. And during our inspections, we'll ensure compliance by contractors. Ms. Yuen-han, Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for the administration about this year's situation. In particular, construction fatalities. Now, the figure is so big. So, in the face of that, what measures does the administration have? Now, some colleague mentioned that we have too many construction projects going on and there is a shortage of labor. But in fact, that doesn't mean we must import labor. Instead, we could step up our effort in advance of these operations. And for example, gondolas. Now, very obviously, it has nothing to do with workers themselves. It has to do with improper inspection of gondolas beforehand. So, yes, on the one hand, there are more construction projects, but we should not conclude whether it has to do with the number of workers or not. Repair and maintenance of machinery is also necessary. Machines may have fatigue as well. It may not directly have to do with the number of workers. So on heavy machinery and use of heavy machinery, there are more accidents involved. Now, my concern is that the administration is being too lazy. I don't think necessarily the increase in accidents have to do with shortage of labor. I see that you're also shaking your head, Deputy Commissioner. So we should not jump to this conclusion. Don't make things between the employers and the labor sector confrontational. Secondly, I understand that some ethnic minorities groups are very keen to take part in the construction or renovation industry. Now, because the hours are more stable and they can get knock off earlier. But what about accidents involving ethnic minorities? Are they familiar with site safety? What about the training provided to ethnic minorities beforehand? We'd also like the breakdown of these figures. So these are my two comments. And Mr. Lau. Chairman, I agree with Ms. Chan that when accidents occur, we should not put the blame on workers' negligence. Because in a work environment, the employer has this statutory responsibility of ensuring workers' safety. Now, in the past, I've heard employers saying that the workers refuse to use the safety belts provided by the employer. However, we also explained to the employers that supervision was also necessary to ensure workers would use the safety belts. If the workers refused, they should stop the operation and urge the workers to put the safety belts back on. So, in fact, I share Ms. Chan's view, and as I said in the opening remarks, seeing the situation of the construction industry this year, we launch inspection and enforcement measures to remind employers to perform their duties. If on visiting a construction site we find hazards endangering the workers' safety or hazards which would make the workers prone to injuries, we would, like I said just now, issue suspension notices. And the contractors are very much in fear of receiving suspension notices from us. Even so, then prosecution being taken up, because once the suspension notices are issued, they will need to stop the operation immediately. Only when they have implemented measures to clear our concerns, would their operation be resumed. So on ethnic minorities, Ms. Chan, we provide training to them as well, including the publication of safety pamphlets in the languages commonly used by ethnic minority groups in Hong Kong. And we've also adopted a new method in recent years. We rely more on graphics than words to remind them of occupational safety. Next, Mr. Leung Yu-chung. Chairman, on occupational safety and health, I think we can all agree that one accident is too many, because it has to do with the worker's safety, even his life and his family's members. Although the figure is on the decline, as long as there are still industrial accidents, we should stay vigilant and we should try our best to eradicate accidents. However, sometimes unfortunate accidents do happen. What we should do is to try to prevent such from happening. As mentioned by Deputy Commissioner, more accidents have to do with work at height, so the department should step up their effort in this regard. Once the problem is identified, more effort should be spent to improve the situation. Now, I heard from workers that they are having some pressure because of the need to finish the work earlier. Well, this is a very prevalent problem because of labor shortage. As a result, foremen require them to work overtime or to expedite their progress. And I see that sometimes the construction works will commence as early as 7 a.m. And it's a physically demanding job for construction workers. If they work continuously for long hours, their physical and mental health will be affected. Their energy level will also be depleted, and very often, because they get too tired, accidents result. So the department should also consider whether this is the cause. And if so, something should be done to alleviate workers' pressure. Because if this trend continues, I am very concerned. Because we have one construction project after another. There are too many of them. We have construction of buildings, as the government would want to produce more flats, and there are also mega construction projects. Is it really the cause? Have you looked into it? If so, how to resolve it? Thank you, Mr. Leung Yu-chung, for the question. Now, from the Labor Department's point of view, we would disregard whether there is a need to compress the work process. As far as legal responsibility is concerned, regardless of the construction method, we consider the employer's responsibility and that the employer should ensure workers' safety, or the employer will be liable to criminally. And I will also talk about our prosecution policy and the tariff. And as I answered Ms. Chan Yuen-han's question just now, if a hazardous situation arises, then the Labor Department will issue a suspension notice. Well, sorry, Deputy Commissioner, I understand that if it's on the part of, if it is because of the employer's negligence and he will be prosecuted, I understand that. But I'm not talking about any breach of the law. It is because of workers' fatigue. Because, as I said just now, the employer may disregard the need to hurry the project through, and there may not be a breach of the law, but I'm talking about this being the cause for industrial accidents. If you just consider whether there is any breach of the law, then it may not be the case. You may not identify the problem. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your question. As I said just now, the established policy of the Labour Department is, as I said just now. And may I go back and ponder Mr. Leung's question, but very often, as far as occupational safety and health is concerned, we have to keep close liaison with the sectors. And I recalled a number of years ago, Mr. Leung reminded us to pay attention to the problem of heat stroke. And we went back and considered the issue. And last year, the CIC issued a new set of guidelines for employers in the construction industry to provide an extra 15-minute rest break for workers in summer, because back then there were 25 cases of heat stroke, and this year there were only 16 cases. So I don't want to hastily answer Mr. Leung's question. I'll go back and consider it and see if we can have more effective measures, just like what we have for heat stroke.
Yeah.
I think this is as far as the administration can go. I agree with Mr. Leung Yu-jung that because of the rush projects, and there are more new recruits in the construction trade, and these may contribute to the construction injuries, incidents. Perhaps other than the law, would there be any initiatives that can be adopted to address the situation? You have another go? Chairman, I asked the question about the penalty. If you don't have the information now, you might wish to supplement the information in writing about the level of penalties. Chairman, I beg your pardon. I went over the time. I do have some information in terms of penalties. On average, we're talking about a fine of $20,000 or thereabout. Having listened to members' feedback, we did consider the issues. We discussed the strategies with the DOJ, and we supplemented the information to the court. Over the past year, Mr. Poon, for fatal construction trade industry, the level of fines has increased to 6-digit or close to 6-digit fines. We noticed that the courts, or one of the appeal court judges did say that we have to adopt a progressive approach instead of raising the fines in one fell swoop. And over the past year, we have seen some clear increases. Mr. Poon, do you need further information? Yes, if they can supplement more specific information, so much the better. Yes, some specific information, please. I think that's about time we wrap this item up. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And very quickly, we move on to the next item, review of the levels of compensation under the Employees Compensation Ordinance, the Pneumoconiosis and Mesothelioma Compensation Ordinance, and the Occupational Deafness Compensation Ordinance. So we invite the administration in, please. With us for this item for discussion are Mr. Donald Tong, Commissioner for Labour, Mr. Ernest Yip, Assistant Commissioner, Ms. Teresa Fong, Senior Labour Officer, and Ms. Christine Butt, Senior Labour Officer. The administration has made available a paper to us. That's paper 2/261/14-15, bracket 05. And the Secretariat has also, for this item, kindly put together a background brief, CB2 261/14-15, bracket 06. There is another paper. Regarding the Min Administration's paper on decision taken by the LAB at its meeting on September the 12th. There's paper CB2 2311/13-14, bracket 01. I'd like to invite the Commissioner to take us through the paper, please. Chairman, thank you. Members, if I may briefly take members through the paper, and then I will be only too delighted to answer members' questions. We do have a mechanism to review the level of compensation every 2 years under the ECO, the PMCO, and the ODCO. The idea is to ensure that the level of compensation will be kept in pace with the wage movement and the price changes, so that the relevant people will be given proper protection. We reviewed the situation, the price, the wage movement and price changes between 2011 and 2013 for the 24 months, and there are 18 compensation items that will see an increase between 5.73% to 44.4%. All details are sent out in the paper. Our proposals had the support of the LAB. Simply put, the results of the review are that we adjust upward 15 items of compensation in accordance with all the indices. We look at the nominal wage index in 2012 and 13. Now there are 5 items under ECO and 7 items under ODCO. They will be adjusted by 10.56%, and also in accordance with 2012 to 13, the CPI-A, we will adjust 3 items under the ECO and 3 items under the PMCO upwards by 8.8%. Also, we have looked at the CSSA, the standard rate, and adjust the rate by 5.73%. We've also taken into account the wage and food allowance for foreign domestic helpers, and under the PMCO, the care and attention compensation amounts will be adjusted by 9.07%. There are 3 items where there are special arrangements. In 2013, we looked at the compensation regarding the PSLA, and the amount of monthly compensation under PMCO will be increased by 44.41%. We've also taken into account the experience of the ODCB in administering the hearing assistive devices financing scheme. There are two adjustments there. The first one is the financing limit for first-time HAD applications. This will go up by 25%. And also the aggregate financial limit for the HAD applications, they will go up by 44.44%. So there are 15 items that will be done in accordance with the established indices. Altogether, we're talking about 18 compensation items. Under the ECO, for the 8 items of compensation, we liaised with the Federation of Insurers because that would have some bearings on the calculation of the premiums. And because of these 8 items, there will see some increases. The premium will go up by 0.555% to 1.664%. That's in accordance with the Federation of Insurers. Also under the PMCO, there will also be increases related with the fund boards, and they are of the view that the rate of increase will not cause any financial problems, and they would be able to afford them. Now, for these 18 compensation items, we hope that the Manpower panel will give its endorsement, and we will be submitting funding proposals to the Finance Committee soon enough for implementation. All right, I throw the floor open for questions. Mr. Poon. Chairman, thank you. There are only 2 members left here. We don't have any time limit on members. Chairman, I support the revisions in principle because these are done in accordance with the established mechanism. I'd like to find out more about this, and that under the mechanism, the review is conducted every 2 years. And the figures seem to be a little bit lagging behind. Will you, instead of 2 years, conduct a review every year? Second, now for permanent loss of capacity, the amount will be adjusted to $26,000. For those working in the bar bending industries, their wages are much higher than these. Will there be an adjustment in this regard? Furthermore, I'm not sure I get this right myself. Now, for the medical bill, it is kept to $200. Now, or will this be changed? Why is it not changed? Commissioner. Thanks very much, Mr. Poon. Now, the review is conducted every 2 years. When we conduct a review on the compensation items, we have to collect a lot of evidence and data, like the CPIA, nominal wage index, and so on. And having got hold of the statistics, there are implications on the insurance premiums, and we have to liaise with the trade in order to work out the implications on the insurance premium, and we have to liaise with the boards for the pneumoconiosis, the occupational deafness, and the LAB, and so on. And we have to make sure that we are able to convince the stakeholders and bring them on board before we would put forward the proposals. And this biannual review is therefore considered to be a proper arrangement. But having listened to members' views, we're prepared to consider this. But as of now, this biannual review mechanism is appropriate arrangement. The other thing is the permanent loss of the permanent incapacity. It is $20,000. We rely on the input of the Census and Statistics Department. At the moment, the daily wage is $850. Multiplied by 26 days per month. That's how they arrive at the figure. We would have regard to the latest statistics of the Census and Statistics Department. If there are any changes there, we would make the adjustment automatically, and the amount will go up accordingly. And we don't have to clear the Legislative Council in this regard. The other thing is the medical expenses. Now, it is $200 or $280 if hospitalization is involved. It was in 2003 that it was last adjusted.
Well, at that time, the public body, namely the hospital authority, adjusted their rates upward, and we also adjust accordingly. And from 2003 onwards, fees charged by the HA remained more or less the same, and that's why we have not made any adjustments. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Next, Mr. Leung Yu-chung. I also have the same question about the biennial review. Although Commissioner just now said that much work has to be done to collect data, and the review would need to be endorsed by a number of boards, I understand that. But it's a pressure on employees if they can't catch up with the existing living standards. So at least you should try to keep up with inflation. A review every 2 years is meaningless because of the lagging effect. They can't make up for the difficulties they faced in the past 2 years. Well, although for minimum wage rates, it's reviewed once every 2 years, but Secretary for Labour and Welfare says that if necessary, a review can be done in advance of the 2 years, say in a year's time. So the minimum wage rate is more difficult, more complex, and yet they can do it. If they can, then why not this as well? Because it can it will not affect the whole society. According to Secretary for minimum wage, it affects the society as a whole. As for this is it is coming out from the funds to compensate employees. So perhaps you should change the biennial review to an annual review. That's the first question. Second question, as I said to the department a number of times, for the OD workers, they would like to have living supplements, same as those dished out to workers under the PMCO, and you answered that it's not affordable, but in fact the funds are more than sufficient, and you even have to reduce the levy. So it's unfair to employees. We have been making this request to you for many years. Will you reconsider this so that employees can get another form of living supplement because they sacrificed for the sake of the society's prosperity, and the pain and suffering persist. I don't know if you understand it. Deafness is really a great suffering for them. They may not be able to sleep. Please consider their suffering, and it's difficult for them to communicate even with his family members. So please reconsider it. Commissioner, will you reconsider? Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your question. As I said just now, a biennial review at this juncture is the most appropriate arrangement in our view, but I will carefully consider your comment. But as I explained just now, we need to go through the established statutory procedures, and we also have to do a lot, and there are practical difficulties to overcome. But of course, we heard you, Mr. Leung and Mr. Poon, about the lagging effect, and we will continue to keep this in mind. And maybe I will say in short, an extra compensation for occupational deaf employees. We should not simply say whether the fund can support the disbursement of this supplement or compensation. This is not the only consideration. In fact, many others have also raised the same issue. That is why, for the ODCB, they have set up a dedicated working group in 2012 to review it in a holistic manner. The working group comprised specialists, ear, nose, throat specialists, employers, and also representatives from the labor sector. And the ODCB also drew reference from other jurisdictions in relation to the method of compensation for OD employees. And the conclusion was that there was no sufficient ground to set up the compensation for PSLA for OD employees. Of course, I understand the argument why those under the PMCO would get this compensation. Now, for patients suffering from pneumoconiosis, they need to receive regular treatment, and their condition may get worse. As for deafness, of course, the condition may deteriorate, but it is not curable. And on compensation for OD employees, once a diagnosis is made, the employee will be eligible for a one-off legal compensation, whereas for P&M, they receive monthly compensation until they pass away. So we cannot make any direct comparison. On the other hand, we believe we should work on another issue, as mentioned by Mr. Leung just now. Many OD employees may experience discomfort in his ears. And this is what the ODCB should seriously look into. That is why the ODCB is conducting some research. In fact, recently they have launched a scheme to promote the use of a device to treat a condition, to treat the ringing in the patient's ears. And there is also a scheme for the procurement of such a device, and we hope to help these patients. We believe that this is a more pragmatic way of helping them or addressing their discomfort issue. Well, just now the Commissioner explained the difference between employees suffering from the PNM and OD, and there are different compensation arrangements in different jurisdictions. Now, in fact, if I don't know if you have gone through your records. Back in the 1990s, I started to follow up on this issue, and back then you gave us the same argument. You said that if it's death on 1 year, no compensation will be given. I followed up and pursued this issue for many years. Not until several years ago did you agree to give compensation for 1 year deafness as well. In other jurisdictions, well, I mean, all along you maintained that no compensation be given for monaural hearing loss, but now you do give compensation. So you should check your record. The same argument over the years, but eventually you allowed compensation. I don't know why, and this is what we strived for. So I can say that the argument isn't very strong. Back then, workers told you that there was a 7% hearing loss on 1 year and total deafness on the other year. But you just said no, because he still had 30% hearing ability. And then that worker eventually passed away. It was really sad. I don't want to use the same argument because I don't think the argument is sound. I hope that you would have more compassion. They just want more subsidy so that they can lead a better life. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of principle, as you put it before, for the monaural hearing loss. Please could reconsider it. Now, maybe I'll defer to Assistant Commissioner to give you more details on the issue raised about monaural hearing loss. But as I said just now, the ADCB is not shutting out all voices. We keep close watch of the developing trend, and it's not the case that we refuse to listen to requests and comments made by these workers. However, we also need to draw reference from other jurisdictions. I would not say no at the outset because things are evolving all the time, and we will continue to monitor the development, and when there are sufficient justifications to change the practice, we may do so, subject to careful consideration by the government and the board. As for the arrangement of monthly compensation mentioned just now, in fact, in 2012, the special working group set up under the board just conducted a study. Of course, I'm not giving the conclusion, and that there should, but there may not be a whole overhaul very soon, but we'll definitely monitor the trend. I'm not passing the buck to members, but if you receive information in this regard, I'll be happy to receive this information and bring it back to the board for further discussion. I don't know, Chairman, if I may allow Mr. Yip to supplement. About Mr. Leung's question, we discussed at length beforehand. We understand that for the deaf, they may also suffer tinnitus. And as for monaural hearing loss, according to our study and expert opinion received, at that time, some patients did experience hearing loss on just one ear. In a noisy work environment, as we understand, because of the need to communicate with other workers, you just refuse to believe we have been telling you this for many years. And then later on, so I think different experts may have different opinions, so you should find some other experts. Now, coming back to the compensation for OD, we would like to help these workers as well in a more pragmatic manner. And as mentioned in the study, tinnitus cannot be measured by any objective yardstick. So there is a practical difficulty. But we're not saying no to this. We're trying our best to help them. And we have an ENT specialist looking into it, hoping to minimize their pain and suffering. Then should they find some other experts? Chairman, I agree that the government can follow up on this issue. And when with adequate financial support from the funds, we can consider it. But of course, Mr. Leung, you talked about the case of striving for compensation for those with monaural hearing loss. I hope that soon you get what you strive for. We just want more support for these workers as they age.
But the number keeps decreasing. You must understand we don't have that many new cases coming on stream. Why don't you offer them more benefits for these declining number of sufferers? Mr. Kwok Wai-keung, Chairman, thank you. I welcome the Commissioner here to brief us on the adjustment. It seems to me that this is kind of a routine exercise, the biennial review. Members made it very clear that there are problems with the biennial review. Basically, you are trying to catch up with inflation. Now, why don't you anticipate the inflation rate and offer them the adjustment ahead of time? Now, why do you have to lag behind the changes? For the three pieces of legislation, the justification for the adjustment are that you're basically looking at the wage movement, the price changes, and also the foreign domestic helpers' food allowance and so on. But do you also poll them as to what the changes are on the ground? For these workers who are suffering illnesses, have you tried to ascertain whether there have been any changes to them? Also, under the Employees' Compensation Ordinance in the mainland of China, in Taiwan, they would factor in the cost of rehabilitation. For these occupational diseases, the first 6 months would be the golden period for recovery. If there is any delay, then there would be a bearing on their livelihood. The compensation mechanism is such that the workers are only compensated for their injuries. And many times they get the calculation wrong, and the workers are really suffering intensely. Would you factor in the rehabilitation costs into the equation so that the workers will be able to recover and get back to work as soon as possible? Para 18 of the paper makes it very clear that the best HAD, the hearing assistive aids, would cost something like $16,000. And now you are adjusting this from $12,000 to $15,000, and they would be entitled to this if they are purchasing this for the first time. Why don't you cap it at $16,000 so that they would be able to get the best hearing aids? Is it the case that they have to top up the difference themselves? Commissioner, thanks very much, Mr. Kwok, for the question. Now, this may be a biennial review, but we have to come back to LegCo every time, because without the approval of LegCo, we can't really make available the funding. Now, this is no routine exercise at all. We understand that this compensation will mean a great deal to the workers. We are very pragmatic. I'd like to reiterate that for these 18 items of compensation that we see increases, 15 of them are adjusted in accordance with the established indices. For 3 of them, they are not adjusted in this manner. As I said earlier on, like the pneumoconiotics, the compensation will go up by 44%. We've also taken into account the needs of the sufferers of the occupational deafness, and also the experience of the board. For the first purchase of the hearing aids, we are increasing that by 25%. This has not been adjusted for some considerable time, and for the cumulative allowance, we also increase that by 40%. Maybe we haven't made this sufficiently clear in the paper. We never gave the undertaking that there would be a biennial review, but in this paper for HAD, hearing assistive devices, for the first purchase and the cumulative amount, we will incorporate them into the biennial review as well. Because in the market, the hearing aids are in the range of $14,000 to $16,000. There is a range there in terms of the hearing aids. Now, basically, the money comes from the trade, and on the one hand, we have to help those suffering from occupational deafness, but at the same time, we have to make sure that the money contributed to the fund will be well spent. So we will keep an eye on the funding where necessary. In the next review exercise, we are prepared to adjust the amount upwards. So that is not something that will concern us. From the board's information, we get to see that about 76% of the workers would be spending something like $12,000 to $15,000 on the hearing aids. There are 40. I've got myself very, very confused. I'm sorry. There are about 1,200 or so workers who needed to purchase the hearing aids, of whom about 40 spend more than $12,000 And of these 40, about 30 or so, close to 30, who spend about $12,000 to $15,000. So this range would be enough. As regards rehabilitation, Mr. Kwok has got a point there. We attach a great deal of importance to that. And in Hong Kong, there is a shortage of workers, and we very much hope that the workers who got injured would be able to nurse them back to health soon enough, so that they can get back to their work. Now we're dealing with the adjustment for the compensation items. In relation to the rehabilitation, there are certain things that we're doing at the moment. We are liaising with the insurance trade to help the workers to recover and get back to work without relying on the compensation. Second, you probably recall the chief executive gave the instruction to the Labour Department, and we are liaising with other departments to look at the insurance arrangement for the high-risk trade and the rehabilitation arrangement. We hope that in the near future, our views and the way in which we deal with the issues will be made known to members. So bear with us for the time being, Mr. Kwok. Chairman. Commissioner, I welcome what you said regarding the rehabilitation, but if I may add that there should be psychological counseling for the workers, for the injured workers. The workers tend to be really very depressed when they are when they have sustained injuries. I hope that there would be counseling so that physically they would be nursing themselves back to health, and psychologically, emotionally, they would also get some assistance. Mr. Poon, Chairman, together with Mr. Leong, we met the workers suffering from hearing loss. And I don't think we can feel for them. There should be living supplements for them. I hope that the government will take a step forward. Mr. Tong, the Commissioner, mentioned the tinnitus. And you talked about the survey, the research. How soon are you going to have the findings available? Mr. Yip. Chairman, at the Occupational Deafness Compensation Board, there is a task force that is responsible for helping those suffering from occupational deafness to help them with the problems of deafness. Now, the Commissioner mentioned the devices with tinnitus masking function, and if this proves to be good enough, then the board can procure these kind of devices. And there are also follow-up initiatives that are being undertaken. We will let members know about the progress at the right time. Unless members have any further questions, the administration is prepared to submit funding proposals to the Council regarding the 3 pieces of legislation. There are 18 compensation items that will see adjustments, and they will be submitting the proposals to the Council for endorsement. Any further questions? May I, Chairman? Yes, please. I'm putting this question for the workers. Para 20, regarding the ODCO 36,000 rising to 52,000. That's the aggregate financing limit. This indeed, if there is any outstanding amount, they can still use it. Right, for the 18 compensation items, the panel is supportive of the adjustments. Is that right? Yes, we support the proposal. We don't have any other business, so we can adjourn the meeting ahead of time. Thank you very much, Commissioner, and your team. Thank you.